am excited to get started with you all today. So, you are in the right place if you signed up for the 2026 Money Reset workshop. So, this workshop is for you to take advantage of the fresh start we're all about to get on January 1st. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in just a few minutes. But that's what this workshop is all about. And it is for women who make good money, but you just feel like you should be further along. You're feeling a little bit behind. And it's time for a reset. 2026 is your year to build wealth. And for real this time, we are not playing around. This is our year. This is our year to build wealth for real this time. So let's go ahead and talk about what this workshop is really about. I think the best way to do that is to first talk about what it's not. This is not a budgeting workshop. It is not about getting more willpower, becoming more disciplined, or trying harder. And it's definitely not about deprivation and cutting out lattes and giving up your life. Because let me tell you something, if that was what this workshop was about, then your 2026 will be just like every other year. This workshop is different than anything I've ever taught before because this workshop is actually about understanding the root causes of what's actually keeping you stuck so that you can finally reset and move forward in a way that is lasting, not something that is just going to last a couple of days or a couple of weeks into the new year, but this is a new beginning for you all. So let's talk about how today is going to work. So we're going to go through 3 resets, okay? With these, we're going to look at patterns that have been holding you back that you've really never been able to name before. You're going to understand why past attempts didn't stick, and you're going to walk away with a clear relationship with your money and yourself. There's nothing that you need to do. I do want you to take notes. I also want you to be very present because some of the things I'm going to say will land, some won't. But the things that land, they are meant for you. And I want you to grab a hold of them because honestly, you can't really change until you start to see things differently. Okay. So that's the goal of this is so you can start thinking and seeing things differently. And then that'll give you the opportunity to really have the fresh start we all want for 2026. So let's talk about who this workshop is for. This is for you if on the outside, it looks like you have it all together. Your career is going well, your business is booming, and you make really good money. Most people think you have it all together. They would never guess that inside money is stressful, right? Because on the inside, that's what money feels like. It feels stressful. It comes in, but it goes right back out. If you can relate to paying off credit cards only to run them back up again, maybe you save, but then before you know it, you've spent it all pretty impulsively, and you're constantly wondering, where in the world is all my money going? And this is an internal battle. Like most people don't know you're dealing with this, but you do, and you're the most important person, and you're ready to completely change. And one of the things you may say to yourself often is, I should be further along by now. I hear this all the time from women who come to me for help. They're just like, Jermaine, based on how much money I make, based on my age, based on the knowledge that I have, I should be further along by now. I know what I should be doing, but I just can't get myself to do it. If you can relate, then you are in the right place. Okay. So I know some of you may be new to me. Others may have been in my world for a long time. You may have heard my story before. So with that, I am going to tell the shortened version just so you can know like why I'm so passionate about this work and so that you can know that just what I described, that was me. So my husband and I, we both grew up in blue collar households. There wasn't a lot of money. We both went to college, graduated, got really good jobs, and we got married. Instantly, we were 6-figure earners, and we thought we were rich. So we did what we thought rich people did, right? We bought the house, bought the cars, traveled. We never told ourselves no because we always had to tell ourselves no when we were younger. And we were like, nope, we make good money. We're going to enjoy life. And that's exactly what we did. Now, We graduated, both of us combined, graduated with $100,000 in student loans. And then within that time of a couple of years before we had baby number one, we had racked up another 100K. So we were $200,000 in debt by the time we had our first child. But we were making good money. We didn't have any major responsibilities besides the mortgage. So we were still living life. But when baby number one came, guess what came with that? A daycare bill. And that is when things got a little tight. So we had to start juggling balls around, robbing Paul to pay Peter, doing things like that. But we would still make it work. I started to get a little frustrated. I started to feel a little anxiety around money, but we were making it work. But then a couple years later, guess what happened? Baby number two came. And when baby number two came, the daycare bill doubled. And so at this point, the daycare bill and our mortgage were the exact same amount of money. If anybody can relate, just let me know in the chat. So that is when those balls we were juggling, robbing Paul to pay Peter, all of that just didn't work anymore. And that anxiety, that low-grade anxiety I was feeling around money now was like full-blown stress and panic. And I just knew we couldn't keep living like that, not just for me, but for my kids. Like, I didn't want them to grow up witnessing their parents fight about money, constantly argue about money and just not have money. I didn't want to have to tell them no because we couldn't afford it. I don't mind telling them no, but I didn't want money to be the reason why. And I didn't want to, teach them those types of habits. And so started Googling, right? Because whenever you have questions, you want answers, you Google. And I got all kinds of answers, right? Most of it was all about deprivation. Like, how do you get out of debt? How do you save? How do you build wealth? It was all about cutting out lattes and not going on vacations and no longer eating in restaurants. And that just didn't resonate with me because we made great money. Why couldn't we go to restaurants? So I just ignored it and I kept struggling. Then I noticed other things were coming up on Google when I searched, like bankruptcy. And I thought that was going to be the thing because it would just wipe the slate clean and we could start fresh, right? At least that's what I thought. And so we did that. We went through something called Chapter 13, which is not Chapter 7. Chapter 7 will wipe the slate clean, but Chapter 13 is for high income owners in the United States. And all it does is it takes all your debts, restructures them, and then within 5 years, you have to pay it off, but you get to do it without creditors harassing you, and you get to pay the same monthly payment for the next 5 years. So we signed up for that, and I thought, okay, everything's good. But it wasn't, because guess what? My spending habits didn't change. I didn't change. We were still not saving. We were still spending everything we made. And that's when I knew, like, just quick fixes were not the answer. I knew then that I had to change. We had to change who we were on the inside, not just what we did on the outside. So with that, I went back to Google, and what came out? All those deprivation-based strategies. And I was so fed up and so tired that I was willing to do anything. So I bought the books, I devoured them. And then I was like, fine, we're going to do it. We're going on a strict budget. No more lattes, no more vacations, no more nothing. And I took that plan to my husband, and he looked at me like, who are you? And what have you done with my wife? And he said something that changed our lives. He said, Jermaine, we have to do something, but we cannot live like that. We have $200,000 worth of debt. That's going to take us a long time to pay off. And you want us to not do anything for that long period of time? And that is when I started to question everything. I started to question, why do we have to give up everything in order to get our finances under control? Why can't we save and still go out to eat sometime? Why can't we get out of debt and still buy nice things at times? Why couldn't we invest and still take family vacations? Like, why did those things have to be in conflict with each other? And I just decided, like, no, they don't have to be. You can figure this out, Jermaine. You can figure out how to build wealth and enjoy your life at the same time. And that is the mission that I have been on ever since. And I'm so proud to share that we paid off all of that debt, over $200,000 worth of debt. We built a net worth that is well over $500,000. I have a podcast where I help other women do exactly what I'm going to talk to you about today. And I have numerous client success stories where I personally and privately work with women to help them completely change their financial life. And so here's what I want you to know. I am not special. You're going to actually hear from a few of my clients today, real briefly. I'm going to share some of their stories. They are not special, not at all. We're just women who decided that enough was enough. Enough. And my money, you know what? It was a hot mess. I wasn't born with the money gene. I didn't major in finances. I just created a proven process that works. And you're going to see why it works today, because it works with your brain. It works with how your brain is naturally wired. And so I want you to know that if I can do it, so can you, especially now. Why do I say that? Because you are standing at the edge of the biggest fresh start we all get every single year. Okay? You are standing at the edge of it. There is a psychological reason why new beginnings feel so powerful, why the new year gets everyone excited about what they're going to do differently in the new year. And it's called the fresh start effect. It's called the fresh start effect. And the new year is one of the biggest fresh starts we get. Okay, so let me just explain this for a second. You do not have to wait to January 1st to start fresh. You can start fresh anytime you want to. But this one is just handed to us because it's when we close out one year and start another one. This is what our brains register like, oh my gosh, we have an opportunity for a fresh start, a clean slate. And so I'm going to invite you to take advantage of it, because a fresh start is like drawing a line in the sand and literally declaring that this next chapter will be different, that this next year will be different. Okay. And you may be thinking, Jermaine, are you talking about New Year's resolutions? Because if you are, we all heard the stats, right? There's a stat that says 40% of Americans set a New Year's resolution, but 80% of them fail, right? And this is what everybody likes to share. Oh my gosh, New Year's resolutions, they just don't work. When the truth is, it didn't say that 100% of the people failed. It said 80%. So what does that mean? It means that 20% actually succeeded. And that is millions of people when you think about it. So there has to be something that's different about the 80% and the 20%. And if you ever want to do or be anything extraordinary, you never want to be in the majority. You always want to be in the minority of people, that 20%. And so today we're going to kind of look at what was different about them. Like, what are some of the things that they probably did, or how are they thinking differently? What's going on with them, and how can we apply it to you so that you can take advantage of a fresh start as well? So this workshop, again, is not about trying harder or trying to be more disciplined. That is not your problem, I promise you. It is about understanding what actually needs to shift so that you're part of the 20% whose fresh start not only do you start fresh, but you finish strong. I want to invite you to imagine this time next year, this time 2026, you can literally look back and be in awe of how you changed financially. You can see that if you imagine, you can see that things can be totally different. When it comes to your debt, it could be gone or close to gone. You could be in a position where you are in 100% control of your money. You could have significant money saved. You could be investing like you've never done before. You could be making money that you never even thought was possible. If you're willing to go on this journey with me and declare that this next year will be different, because you are going to take advantage of this fresh start. So with that, I am inviting you all to be present. We're about to go into the resets that we all need to make. Be present. If you are in a distraction-free place, that is amazing. Get a notebook and try to really, really pay attention, because I think that I'm going to say some things that will land with you, and I'm ready to go. All right. So Reset number one. And I will say this too, after each of the resets, the first two at least, there will be time for us to kind of chat and reflect. So when that time comes, please talk to me, use the chat, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So reset number one, you've been trying to solve the wrong problem. You've been trying to become more disciplined with money. I hear it all the time. I just need to be more disciplined, Jermaine. I have no self-control. I need to really be able to use my willpower appropriately, right? Here's the thing about willpower that I don't know if you're aware of. Willpower is limited. Willpower is a limited resource that we all have. We can use willpower for anything short term. So I want you to think about if you needed to or you wanted to lose like 3 pounds for a vacation, you can use willpower to get there, right? In a month, you can totally do it, or a few weeks, you can totally do some dieting using willpower and you will lose that weight because it's not a lot, right? But what if you were someone who needed to lose 200 pounds? You would not be able to use willpower to get there because it's a journey and willpower runs out. However, when it comes to our money, we think that we just need to use our willpower. But that's not true. So we do things like no spend challenges. We put ourselves on strict budgets. We tell ourselves that we're going to cut everything out, and none of that is sustainable. Why? Because willpower is only for short-term things, not for long-term goals. Okay. And so some of us, we might use 0% transfers and we swear off using credit cards. But what happens? Willpower runs out and then you're back to using your credit cards again. Right. And then you use bonuses or other things to clean it up. And sometimes we end up in double the debt. So you've been trying to become more disciplined. You've been trying to use more willpower. You've been trying to become better with money by efforting. And that is not the problem you need to solve. And every time you do this, you end up right back where you started and you're frustrated. And then you start telling yourself that you're the problem that needs to be fixed, that is something wrong with you. But the real problem isn't you, and it never was you. The real problem is that you're stuck in what I call a limiting financial comfort zone. If you've been listening and realizing that money is the one area you just can't seem to figure out, even though you're successful everywhere else, hear me when I say this. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that traditional money advice wasn't made for women like you. Women who earn good money, want to build wealth, and still enjoy their lives. My clients all start where you are. Paying off the same credit cards over and over again, saving up to a certain amount only to spend it back down, or feeling like based on their income, they should be so much further along by now. But with my help, they change all of that. One client paid off over $11,000 in credit card debt and never ran it back up again. Another saved $5,000 in just 2 months. And another went on multiple vacations without going back into credit card debt. They are not special unicorns. They're women just like you, great at making money and ready to finally get great at not only enjoying it, but also keeping it and growing it. So if you've been listening and thinking she's talking directly to me, this invitation is for you. Don't keep pushing this off. You and I can fix this together, privately, safely, and without judgment. All you have to do is go to jermainefoley.com/consult to book your wealth building strategy consultation or click on the link in the show notes. Let's finally get you unstuck with money. A comfort zone, we all are in a financial comfort zone. Your comfort zone is where it's not necessarily where you're comfortable with money, it's where you're familiar financially. Okay, so it's called a comfort zone, but it's not always comfortable for most of us. So this is how much money you're used to having, how much money you're used to spending, how much money you're used to saving or owing, even if that familiar place isn't what you want, right? Now, there are 2 types of comfort zones. Like I said, we all are in one. There's a limiting comfort zone, and this is what this looks like. This is where you pay off your credit cards, but you run them back up again. Why? Because it's familiar for you to be in credit card debt. So when you pay it off, it's almost like your brain pulls you back in to credit card debt. Another scenario could be that you save money, but then you spend it back down. It's like you could get to a certain amount of money, and anything beyond that, you're going to spend it back down. Something's going to happen where you're going to spend that money. It's like almost a sabotage that we do to ourselves. You could earn more, but it doesn't feel like it. Why? Because you end up spending more, and lifestyle creep will eat up all of that extra income that you get. And then you're constantly feeling like you should be further along. Now, on the other hand, here's what a supportive financial comfort zone could look like. It's carrying little to no revolving credit card debt. So you may use credit cards, get the perks, get the points, but you pay it off every month. You're not paying interest. Or you have savings that stay intact. It's not that you don't spend your savings on things that you set it aside for. So if you are saving for vacations, you don't have a problem using it for vacations, but you're not also using it to go shopping with if that's not what the money was for. You earn more and you build wealth. Like the more money you earn, the more wealth you build. Yes, your lifestyle increases some as you earn more money, but all of it isn't eaten up by lifestyle creep. And then you get to enjoy life without financial stress. So again, we're all in a financial comfort zone. Some of us are in a limiting financial comfort zone, and the goal is for us to get to a supportive financial comfort zone. Okay. Now, I want you to know that if you're in a limiting financial comfort zone, it is not a character flaw. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that your brain prefers what's familiar over what's better. Yes, of course, it's better to be in a supportive financial comfort zone. But if that's not what's familiar to you, you're going to continue to repeat the same things over and over again. Your brain's job is to conserve energy and to be efficient. And it does that by creating habits and living in habit loops. Okay, this is wiring. This is not about discipline. This is not about you being good or bad with money. This is just the way our brains are wired. But listen, all of this is really, really, really good news because we can hack the brain a little bit. So if the brain prefers what's familiar, the goal isn't to force yourself to be more disciplined. The goal is to change what's familiar to you, right? So if you're familiar with being in credit card debt and your brain wants to stay there, we need to reprogram and we need to change it where, oh, actually, now I'm familiar with not being in credit card debt. So I'll give you a quick example here. So once we were out of debt, while we were getting out of debt, we didn't use credit cards. But then a couple of years after getting out of debt, I decided that I wanted to build trust with myself where I could use credit cards again. And I wanted the perks. I wanted to just be the type of woman who could trust herself with credit cards. So I opened up a Chase Sapphire Preferred credit card and I was earning the points. I was doing the thing. And what I noticed was that the balances started creeping up and I started to carry balances month to month. So instead of paying it off every month, I was, carrying the balances over. I was paying interest. And when I got a bonus or something like that, I would pay it off. And I noticed that pattern. I was like, this is interesting. This is not what I wanted to do because honestly, if you're paying interest, the credit card points and the free rooms or flights that you get, it washes itself out or it's just not worth it. And so I decided that I didn't want that anymore. And so I used this, it was this time last year, or not last year, but years ago, but it was this time. I used that as a reason to create a fresh start for myself. I decided that January 1st, I was going to practice paying off my credit cards every single month. And from that point on, that's exactly what I did. I practiced doing it. So practicing being the woman who doesn't live in credit card debt is what's going to help you to reprogram what's familiar to you. You want to practice being the person who saves. You want to practice being the person who doesn't overspend. Now, this happens through awareness. Once you see that, oh my gosh, I'm in a financial comfort zone when it comes to this or that, that's the first step. and then getting support and then practicing. This is how you change what's familiar to you. And this is the kind of work I work with my clients on in private coaching. So this is a little testimonial from someone who literally was stuck in a credit card financial comfort zone, a limiting financial comfort zone when it came to credit cards. She just couldn't shake them. And it took a lot of coaching and really digging to the root cause of what was going on with her. But she sent me this message and I was so happy to see it. She said, "Good morning. I did it. No more debt except my house. I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you for coaching me through this process because it truly was mind over matter. Have a fantastic day." So this is just an example of what's possible when you start to really understand what limiting financial comfort zones you're in and then work to change that and expand that. So this is an opportunity for us to chat a little bit. When you think about yourself, which limiting financial comfort zones are you currently stuck in? You can put it in the chat. So I shared one with you earlier that I was stuck in. I, started using credit cards again, and I found myself carrying that credit card balance. So it was like I was starting to get comfortable having a credit card balance every month. So what about you? Is there something, is it that you can't get past a certain amount of savings? Is it that every time you get yourself out of credit card debt, it's like you're pulled back in? What is it about you that you find yourself in a comfort zone over, a financial comfort zone? Someone is saying credit cards for sure. Like credit cards, I'm seeing some savings. It's like, yeah, I can't get past having a certain amount in savings. Yes, this is all so normal. Someone said they can see themselves in more than one category. Yep, pull back into credit card debt. And I see that. Yep, I'm completely limited. I get that 100%. And listen, now you know it's not you. This is just how your brain is wired. Isn't it fascinating? Because you would think on a logical level that that's not what you want. And here's what I want to tell you guys. On a logical level, that's not what you want. Your higher self doesn't want this. It doesn't want this at all. But that primitive part of you, that simple part of you, have survived for years just doing the same thing over and over again. So anytime you try to change, it's like, no, we got to go back because that's what's familiar. That's what's safe. So now you know that that's what's going on. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, so here's the recap for this. You've been trying to solve the wrong problem. So beating yourself up, telling yourself that you're undisciplined and you're bad with money and you don't have any self-control. That is not it, right? What's going on is that you're stuck in a limiting financial comfort zone. Remember, everybody has a financial comfort zone. You just want to become the woman who's in a supportive financial comfort zone. So expanding your financial comfort zone isn't something you do in a single workshop. It's something you practice over time. And the more you practice, the more you will see that your financial comfort zone expands. Okay, reset number 2. You do not have to give up your life to build wealth. And I hinted at this very early on when I told my story, but I'm going to go even deeper into why this matters so much today. Here's what I want to start off with, though. I'm going to bust a myth that has been around for ages, that in order to build wealth, you got to sacrifice, you got to deprive yourself, you've got to give up everything. It's a lie. You do not need to choose between building wealth and enjoying life. You actually can do both. You can build wealth and enjoy life at the same time. And this matters a lot. Okay? The financial advice you've been given is working against your brain. Cut back, deprive yourself, wait until retirement to live. Who wants to do that? If anybody here finds that appealing, please, please, please raise your hand. But I don't think any of us wants to wait until we're 65 or 70 to finally maybe get to live life. But that's what all of the financial advice has told us that we had to do. So remember, I said that the financial advice we've been given is working against your brain. So this little triangle is called the motivational triad. Don't worry too much about it. It doesn't matter what it's called. But our brains are naturally wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So do what feels good and stop doing what hurts. This is physically and emotionally, okay? So our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But the financial advice we've been given is the total opposite. The financial advice tells us to avoid pleasure and seek pain. It goes against the way we were wired. We are taught, especially women, that it's painful to build wealth. I was on a podcast recently, and the hostess was like, Jermaine, I'm so excited to talk to you. I was there to talk about the do both method. And she was like, I asked my audience what they wanted to hear from you, and they have some questions. She said, one lady is very interested in knowing, how do you do both? She doesn't believe that you can build wealth and still have a good life. So literally, you all, we have been taught that in order to build wealth, you have to live this boring, frugal life. So who wants to do that? Who wants to do that? But here's the thing. On top of that, I want you to realize that it's been a double standard, because men are not taught this. Men are taught to build wealth. They are taught to go make as much money as you can. It's okay to buy fancy watches, fancy sports cars, fancy golf clubs. It's okay to be on fancy golf courses and to fly first class. Go out, conquer the world, make as much money as you can, and they are never shamed for buying things that they enjoy. And then they show, commercials with them with a pretty girl on their arm, right? So they're rewarded. They are taught that building wealth is pleasurable. They are taught that it's good to build wealth and it's easy and you can buy all these things and have all these things. Women, on the other hand, we're not taught to go and make as much money as we can. We are taught to cut back on our spending and to stop buying lattes, because you know what? The reason why you don't have any money is because you spent $5 on Starbucks. It's all crap. I'm sorry. Can you tell I'm a little fired up about this? We're taught to cut back. We're taught that we need to coupon. We can't buy shoes. We can't buy handbags. And if we do, we're frivolous. And here's the thing about this double standard has consequences. Women are retiring with far less money than they need versus their male counterparts. Even after working their entire lives, women are retiring into poverty, living well below what they're used to because they have been sold this lie that building wealth is painful, and so they delay it, okay? Because when something feels bad, your brain doesn't tell you, don't listen to them, you don't need to build wealth. It doesn't say that. It just says, we'll do it later. We'll figure it out later. You have time. We're going to live now, and then we'll worry about our money later, right? And when we do that, we waste the most important wealth building tool that we have, and that's not money. The most important wealth building tool that we have is time, right? And so when we're taught that in order to build wealth, you got to give up your life, and we don't want to do that, we tell ourselves, okay, I'll start investing later. I'll work on my money later. I'll figure it out later. And we're wasting time. To prove that this is true, to prove that time is your most powerful wealth building tool, I'm going to share the tale of two women. Okay, woman A, she's 25 years old. Somebody got to her. Maybe she listened to my podcast, and she started investing $100 bi-monthly. That means every time she got paid, twice a month, she put $100 in a Roth IRA or a regular IRA, and she invested it in an index fund, which returned about 10% over time. She never touched the money, never borrowed from it, and she never increased her contribution. She just kept it at $100 twice a month. Guess what? If she did that, do you think she would be able to still travel and still vacation and still have a good life and build wealth at the same time? Yeah, she would. So if she decided to retire at 65, this is how much money she would have: $1,265,000. This is with her contributing $96,000. But she never added to the $100. She just kept doing it consistently. Versus woman B. She starts at 45. Thank God she started, but she did start a little later. She invested $300 bi-monthly, contributed a total of $144,000. Also retires at 65, and look what she has. She has $456,000. Still a good amount of money, but look how much more woman A has. And guess who put in more money? Woman B. So this right here is showing you that it's not about how much money you contribute. It's about time. It's about time in the market, how much time you spend in the market. And so when we are told that we need to sacrifice and then we don't want to do that, and then we just say we'll deal with it later, it costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the power of time and compounding interest. Compounding interest is when your money makes you money, but then that money earns money. And it just becomes this huge snowball that just grows and grows and grows, and it just can't stop because time is what does the heavy lifting. So for any of you who've been telling yourself that you have time, that you'll figure it out later, please take advantage of this fresh start you're about to get and stop telling yourself that you'll do it later. Because when you tell yourself that, you're missing out on the eighth wonder of the world, which is compounding interest. And you saw that time is your most powerful wealth building tool. Now, if you're looking at this and you're feeling a little discouraged, I didn't show you that to do anything but to show you why time is so important and why when we tell ourselves we're going to wait, it's not a good thing. So this was not for you to feel discouraged. This was to empower you to say, oh my gosh, yes, it would have been great 20 years ago if I would have started, but now I got to start. I have to start now. So there's a saying that the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So the best time to start was years ago. Listen, I didn't start when I was 25. I wish I would have, but I didn't. I didn't start when I was 25. But as soon as I got this, I started. And so that's the same for you. This example isn't meant to discourage you. It's meant to wake you up. You are not too late. This is your time. Okay. And here's the other thing I want to say. A lot of times people say, especially if they're older, they'll say, oh my gosh, I don't have time, right? That's another lie your brain will tell you that will keep you out of the game. Remember, that woman who started at 45, she now has almost $500,000 that she didn't have before. So don't let yourself be talked out of starting. So this is an example of a lady who started working with me when she was an empty nester, you all. So she didn't start when she was 25. She started in her late 40s. She was stuck in the credit card debt cycle. She would pay them off, run them back up again. Her card was Amex. Who can relate with Amex? I know I can. And through our work together, she was able to stop overspending. She didn't stop spending, you guys. She stopped overspending. And when you stop overspending, then you free up money to build wealth with, okay? She built meaningful savings. She negotiated a significant pay raise. And here's her biggest shift. And I want you all to really hold on to this because it really goes back to reset number one, that you can do both. She said, Jermaine taught me that building wealth is possible without giving up my love of travel or my occasional trips to the casino. This is what she liked to do, you guys. She liked to travel, especially to tropical places, and she liked to go to the casino sometimes. And so she did not have to give that up in order to turn her finances around. And she started when she was an empty nester. So it's never, ever, ever, ever too late to do this work. Okay, so it's time to reflect again. Where have you told yourself that I'll enjoy life now, I'm going to live now, and I'll figure out my finances later? Has that ever been something you thought about, or anything you want to share about this last reset? Because I think this one is a huge one that many of us we really fall into that trap. And you see how detrimental it is. And you also see that men are not taught this. This is just women. And you can put your answers in the chat. Looks like I have a question. Okay, I've got a question as well. What are the B3 components of the triangle? Oh, what are the three components of the triangle? Okay. So I think she was talking about the motivational triad. So I'll tell you what they are. So your brain, the job of your brain, your primitive brain, is to be efficient. Efficient. So, and I'm going to prove it to you. So let's say you were living in a neighborhood for years and you were working at the same place for years. You can get home without even thinking. It's like your brain is just etched in your brain. Have you ever gotten somewhere and was like, how did I even get here? I don't even recall doing all the things. So that happened to me one day, but we moved and I found myself turning into my old driveway. Why? Because my brain was on a habit loop. If I wasn't conscious, because I was just going with the motions, it took me back to my old house. So the brain's job is to seek pleasure, do what feels good, right? Avoid pain, stop doing what feels bad. And the third one was conserve energy. So put in as little effort as possible. That's why the brain likes the familiar, because it's easy to do what you've always done. But when you try something new, then that's hard. Good question. Okay, so let's see what you all are saying here. Yes, I've told myself that too much. Wish I had listened to my dad. He told us three girls to start early. Yeah, but here's the thing. One of the reasons why you probably didn't start early was because you thought that meant you couldn't have fun and that you couldn't really live life. Or if you save, then you can't go on a vacation. See, but that is the lie that we all need to really dismantle. If you go into 2026 thinking I can build wealth and enjoy life at the same time, then you can do that, right? And doing both is different. And we're going to talk about this on the next slide. Doing both is different for everybody. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Someone said I never had the money to build wealth, and that I would wonder how true that is, because you can start with any amount. And that's another lie. I think we think that we need all this extra money to be able to build wealth. I was invited to speak at a college just a couple weeks ago, and they want me to come back next month. And I told them that example. I shared that example of like a 25-year-old investing $100 every time they got paid, and they could retire a millionaire. And the one kid came up to me afterward. He wanted to talk privately. He was just like, I want to do that, but I don't think I can afford to do that right now. And I asked him, I said, well, could you start with $25 every time you get paid? And he was like, yeah, I can do that. And so you don't need to start with these big, huge amounts. Just start. Just start. It could be $25 every time you get paid, or every time if you have your own business, every time you pay yourself. And then guess what? You're going to start to see that money accumulate, and then it'll be $50 and it'll be $100. And so I would offer to open up to possibility, and don't believe the lie that you have to have all this extra money to build wealth, because places like Fidelity, you can start. I think you can open an account with $0 and just put in what you can every month, and I will automate it and just keep it going in there, and then increase as you can. Okay, so someone said they feel this way with estate planning. She's in her 30s, feel like it's too early, even though I know time is not guaranteed. Yes, it's never too early to start, especially if you have a family, to start estate planning, making sure you have a will, making sure you have life insurance. So if anything happened, your loved ones are taken care of. And yes, very true. Okay, so to wrap up reset number 2, let's just recap. You don't have to choose between building wealth and enjoying life. You can do both, okay? And doing both isn't a one size fit all or something you learn about in one setting. It's something you figure out over time based on. So when I sit down with my clients to come up with their do both way of handling money, where they can build wealth and enjoy life, we look at so many different things. We look at their lifestyle. We look at what's important to them, their values. We look at their income. We look at the season of life they're in. Because if you have little kids at home versus college kids versus an empty nester, the season of life you're in is so different, right? So doing both will evolve. Enjoying life when you have little kids or when you're single will be different than when you have big kids or when you're married. So this is something that I literally sit down with my clients the first couple of meetings that we have together, and we figure out how they individually can do both. So don't think you can just figure it out like that. This is something you do with support, and it's something that you figure out over time. So my enjoying life looks a lot different than what it did 10 years ago. Okay, and so does my building wealth, quite frankly. All right, so the final reset is reset number 3. And I want all of you to hear me when I say this. There is nothing wrong with you for not having this figured out. There is nothing wrong with you for not having this figured out. I hear it quite often where women are like, I am so successful in my career. I'm successful. I have a business that is doing well. I have great relationships. I have made so many strides in my life, but money is the one area that I just cannot get right. And I want you to know it makes sense why that is. So there's nothing wrong with you. We were never taught this growing up. First of all, financial literacy was not a thing that we learned about in school. Now, currently, it's a mandate where I live that kids have to have 1 semester of financial literacy. But even then, they're not going into the stuff that we're talking about today. I remember the extent of financial literacy I got in high school was learning how to write a check properly, right? And that was it. But we were never taught financial literacy. And then once we started seeking out money advice, what did we get? We got the whole stop buying lattes mumbo jumbo and no more restaurants and stop buying so many shoes. It was all deprivation based, especially to us women. Men are taught something different. And then on top of that, we had no understanding of money psychology, the way our brains is wired, how, money is way more emotional than it is dollar and cents. And then no tools for lasting change. No one has taught us how to create behavior change that sticks. Most of us are just trying to use willpower. We're just trying to white knuckle it, and we put ourselves on strict budgets and we do things that are unsustainable because, again, willpower was never meant to help you to change anything long term. It's just for short term benefits, right? When you think about willpower, I want you to think of it like, let's say back in the day you lived in a cave and you were out hunting and a saber-toothed tiger came out of the bushes and you weren't expecting it. You would use willpower to do things you never thought you could do. You could probably run like you were an Olympic runner. You could probably leap and flip and do all sorts of things, maybe even protect yourself, right? That's what willpower is. It's for short bursts, not for long term. But you can do that long term. You can't do that for a long period of time. So we've been trying to use that to change our finances. But again, because our financial situations are not going to change overnight, we run out of willpower. Most financial education, honestly, is about budgeting. It's about credit scores and math, right? But financial wealth building isn't just about dollars and cents. It's also about psychology, working with the way your brain is naturally wired, behavior, what to do and what not to do consistently over time. And honestly, a lot of times it's more important to recognize what you don't do than what you do, right? What do we try to do? First thing, we're going to change, we start doing something new or trying to stop doing something. And that's part of it, but it's not the full picture. And then also your identity. This is a huge one, you all. How you see yourself with money. How do you talk to yourself about money? Do you tell yourself you're bad with money, that you're a hot mess, that you're a lost cause, that you can't afford to build wealth? What do you say to yourself? Because remember, your brain likes the familiar. So if you've constantly told yourself, I'm bad with money, your brain is like, okay, that's us. We're always going to be bad with money. We're bad with money. We're bad with money. Your brain will just keep repeating that. Okay. So when you try to change your behavior without addressing your identity, like how you talk to yourself, how you see yourself, and without accounting for the psychology, none of it will stick. And this is why all of the things you've tried before hasn't worked, because you're just trying to do something different. That's why my bankruptcy didn't work, because I just did something, but I never changed the way I saw myself. I never changed my habits, and I didn't account for the fact that I was used to being, check to check, even though we made good money. I was used to money coming in and money going out. And so even after the bankruptcy, guess what? That's what I did. I kept the money coming in, but I let it go right back out. So reasons why past attempts didn't work. We talked about this. Forced behavior change with willpower. Willpower is a very limited resource. We cannot use it for long-term change. We never shifted how we see ourselves. And listen, I'm not telling you to gaslight yourself. I'm not telling you to go from saying I'm horrible with money to I'm amazing with money. No, that's not what I'm saying. But you can start like this. So if you constantly think you're a hot mess with money or that you're bad with money, you could start by saying, you know what? In 2026, I'm getting better with money. I'm going to get better with money. Something that is just, that feels slightly better than I'm bad with money. And then you can constantly evolve the way you talk to yourself over time. And the other reason why past attempts didn't work is because your brain just pulled you back to what felt familiar. So if credit card debt is familiar to you, and I saw a lot of you, that's what's familiar. And most of my clients, when they come to me, they have credit card debt. That's one of the main things they want to break free from. They'll pay it off with bonuses. They'll pay it off with 0% interest credit cards. They've paid off credit cards more times than they can count. Like, they're really good at paying off credit cards, but what they're bad at is staying out. They haven't figured out how to stay out. And why? Because they are getting pulled back. Okay, so this is why most people quit by Friday, the second Friday in January. It's actually, there's a name for this, right? So when people set New Year's resolutions, there's a day called Quitter's Day, and that's the second Friday in January. Why? Because people are trying to use willpower to change. They are being sucked back into their old familiar patterns. So this is why Quitter's Day is a thing, and this is why 80% of people who set New Year's resolutions do not stick with them. But remember, 20% do. 20% do not quit. 20% do not quit. And most of the 20% that do not quit, what's one of the things that they do? They don't do this alone. They don't try to change decades of behavior alone. They have support, they have structure, and they have guidance. And I want you to know that you deserve support. So I hear a lot of times women will say, I deserve this trip, I work hard, I deserve, and yes, you do. But you also deserve not to have to figure everything out on your own. Support is not a luxury, it is the missing piece for some of you, right? If you've been trying to figure it out on your own, but it just hasn't clicked, then maybe support is the missing link. Not everyone will need support, but some people do, right? Support gives you a clear roadmap instead of trying to figure it out on your own. Support helps you to see blind spots that no one else can see. I was working with a client recently, and we were kind of going over some things, and she noticed that her income had dipped. She has a contract job, like she has her main work, but she has a contract position where she could make an additional $2,400 a month. And we were doing some work, and she noticed that she was only making like $500 additional a month. And so I was able to dig into that a little bit and just figure out, why are you not taking advantage of the 24? Why is it only 500? And we found out, just by her having support and having someone to bounce ideas off of and to be able to see your blind spots, we found out the reason why she was not taking advantage of that 2,400 was because her thought was, I'm just going to spend it anyway, because that's what she was doing. At one point, she would, put all the extra money into a savings account. But then as soon as, she saw something that she wanted, she would just spend it. And so her brain was like, why am I going to do this extra work when you're just going to spend it anyway? And she was able to have a huge aha moment. And I was able to say, like, well, what if that's not true anymore? Because you have support now, because you have someone that can help you see your blind spots. So that's what I mean by help you see your blind spots. She was just like, I don't know why I'm not making as much money. But after digging in, because your brain is like, I'm not trying to work this hard and you're just going to spend the money. So that's what that was. Support helps you to stay on track when motivation fades. Listen, motivation is fleeting. If you're only going to do what you need to do when you feel motivated, then it's a lost cause, right? So a lot of people say, I know what I should be doing, but I'm not doing it. Why? Because they don't feel motivated. But having support will keep you on track even when you don't feel motivated. Support will help you get back on track when life happens, right? I have so many clients where things just happen out of the blue that they were not expecting. And in the past, when things would have happened, they would have just given up. But when you have support, it's just like, no, let's talk through this. Let's see how we're going to figure this out. Let's keep moving forward. Support also replaces willpower with structure, systems, and accountability. Support makes it way less likely for you to quit. Okay. So with that, I want to offer you guys support. If you are on here and you're like, you know what, going into 2026, I think I might want some support with my money, you are invited to book a complimentary wealth building strategy consultation with me. All you have to do to book this is go to jermainefoley.com/consult. Okay. During that call, we'll look at where you are, where you want to go, and what's been standing in the way, and how we can make 2026 different. And if it's a fit, I will tell you all about my one-to-one coaching program. It's completely private. It's just you, me, Zoom, and your money. And I would love to help you to change whatever it is you want to change about your finances. And this is for women who are tired of trying to figure this out on their own. You are open to having support in 2026. And it's not just about starting fresh in January. It is about finishing strong in December next year. So you want to be the one looking back and thinking like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I took Jermaine up on this offer. My finances look completely different. And I'm going to share an example of that in just a few minutes. Okay. Now I want to let you know, for a short window of time, my calendar is way more open than usual. I have mornings open and some weekends. I think I have Sunday open for consults. And this is for women who want support. Typically, I don't have my calendar as open, but for the next week, it is wide open. And this is for women to book a consultation and who wants help moving forward. Now, if you book your consultation and move forward with private coaching by January 5th, you will lock in 2025 pricing. So again, you're invited, book your complimentary consultation. It's a wealth building strategy consultation. We'll look at where you are, where you want to be, what's been standing in your way, and how we can work together to make 2026 your wealthiest year yet. You can go to jermainefoley.com/consult. That's Jermaine with a G, foley.com/consult. It's right on the screen. So this is an example of a client of mine who sent me this email the other day, and it's literally the other day. And she was like, I just wanted to give you a recap of all that we did together. And I was so happy to see it. But what stood out to me, and I'm going to give you more details on the next slide, was this quote. She said, I reached my goals without feeling like I was on a rice and beans deprivation plan. I have guilt-free fun and make guilt-free purchases, and my money is finally working for me. This is one of my clients. She wanted to remain anonymous. This was one of my clients after working with me for during the program. So what changed for her? She paid off over $12,000 in debt. She built a $9,000 Life Happens Fund. In my world, we call it a Life Happens Fund instead of an emergency fund, because this is money that you spend when life happens. And this was 3 months of expenses for her. She went from not having any retirement savings to having one. She created an automated money system, and she increased her monthly income with a side business. So again, you're invited to book a complimentary wealth building strategy consultation by going to jermainefoley.com. And here's what I will say. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about it, but you're hesitating, I want you to know that that's normal, because your brain wants you to stay in the familiar, right? It wants you to keep doing the same thing over and over again without changing.